Welcome to Sweatpants to Suits, the podcast where we dive into the journeys of career professionals, uncovering the secrets to transforming from sweatpants mode to suits success. Join us as we explore personal stories, insights, and strategies for cultivating a growth mindset and achieving your vision of success. I'm your host, Jerry. Are you ready to up your game? Let's dive in. Meghan Bonde is on a mission to explain why working with a neurodivergent person is beneficial to you. As a Tedx speaker and leader, she has shared her own experiences as a neurodivergent individual with thousands of leaders and organizations, fostering an inclusive and transformational environment to unlock everyone's potential. The world is like a giant weaving mosaic. There's people with different capabilities. Meghan, how did you realize that you are a gifted neurodivergent?
Yeah, I discovered it when my kids got identified. And I've noticed a lot of people who have giftedness don't realize it until their kids get identified. And it made a lot make sense all of a sudden when I was digging into what does this really mean? Because there's so many misconceptions and myths about, well, this means that you're just nerdy and only intellectual. And I found out that there were these intensities around sensory differences and emotional intensities and imaginational intensities with creativity and just this insatiable need to learn in a deep and complex way and a strong sense of fairness. And so when I discovered that those were all traits, when my kids got identified, I was like, oh yeah, I can relate to a lot of this. And it was really helpful for me to understand myself and not see those intensities as a problem, but actually a strength.
Wow, amazing story. Just out of curiosity, is there like a test where you see if you're a gifted person as well?
Yeah, so there's some more informal type quizzes and assessments online. I took one at rainforestmind.com, and that one was really helpful for me. Mensa does testing where you can go to a center and do a computer test. You can ask your doctor to get a full comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation. And oftentimes, because of the medical model, they think giftedness is not a disability, but for example, ADHD or autism are. It makes no sense because there's overlap between all of those, and many people have multiple areas of neurodivergence. And so in order for my insurance to cover it, I had to say I'm seeing these traits of ADHD and autism. And then I did not get identified with those. I got identified with giftedness. But it's just so similar. And that's kind of how you can get a more comprehensive evaluation by a professional.
Oh, that reminds me of a experience I had in high school. There's always this peer I come to seek out homework help, especially with math. This person is super silent. When you ask homework, they're okay with it, but besides that, they won't talk to you about anything else. So with these type of persons, these gifted people, is it okay to converse with them, or how should we create a more accepting mindset?
Yeah, each gifted or neurodivergent person really is still different and have different traits. And so it's just about getting to know those people. And the important thing about neurodivergence is just knowing that that person sort of falls outside the box of what's considered typical, and they face discrimination. And so gifted people or autistic people or people with ADHD or dyslexia or OCD, a wide range of different types of minds do face discrimination. And so having that sort of knowledge that they are neurodivergent and the systems, whether the schools or workplaces, haven't really been designed for them is really important. And we need to find out how do they communicate best and ask them and talk with them about their interests and let them know how we communicate best, because they may not realize the differences from someone else that they're communicating with, and just sort of work to get to know each other and build a relationship to bridge the gap if there's differences with how people communicate.
Wonderful takeaway. So if they don't like to talk, it's best not to leave them in silent, but best to just approach them and understand them. That's one of the key concepts of working with neurodivergent peoples, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they communicate best by email or social media or group gaming or in one-on-one situations where it's planned ahead of time, or knowing about the topic in more structured situations like a book club or a math club or chess club or sporting event. There's different situations that sort of lend itself to somebody feeling comfortable and feeling like they can express themselves and be themselves. And so to not assume that just because in this one situation they're not interacting in the way that you would expect doesn't mean that they don't want to, connect with people. It might just not be the situation where it makes them most comfortable.
When you work with a neurodivergent person at work, what does inclusive environment look like?
It looks like really identifying people's strengths and seeing what they are good at and really leveraging those, and not trying to change someone or fix something that's seen as a problem, but really getting to know them and creating an environment where their needs are really met and celebrated, asking them questions, giving them a list of possibilities for accommodations or adjustments, being clear about the communication systems at work so that people don't have to make guesses all of the time about when should I use email, when should I talk face to face, should I share this in a meeting or separately. Being able to be transparent about that, and then also making sure that one person isn't making the decision about those expectations, but that really listening to the different ideas of, well, why is it that way? Why wouldn't we communicate in this way? This is what works best for me. And it's really about asking the questions and then being transparent and communicating what the expectations are for everybody to know, and just being really flexible with hiring processes and learning and development to include all the different types of learners and how people need to sort of engage and show their talents.
Amazing lessons. So if you're working with a neurodivergent people and they're super good at one task, are they quicker to finish? Are they going to give a better quality than, let's say, a regular person, regular worker?
So people who are neurodivergent do have unique skill sets and strengths that might be hidden or invisible, because in our schools or in our hiring processes, we tend to focus on certain skills, like, in an interview, how well are you at answering these types of questions in this situation? Well, that may not be the actual important skill for the job, is to be good at interviewing. Or if they're really good at art, but the school doesn't do a lot of art, it's hard to see that strength. And so it's really important to just notice and get to know people for their strengths. And not every neurodivergent person has an amazing off the chart strength in one area. Some do, some don't, but it's just about getting to know what are their strengths and where is it going to be a good fit for them to really thrive.
That brings up another question. So neurodivergent people aren't always lacking in communications. They could be super communicative, but they can also be weak on another end, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's asynchronous development where there's some skills that are really easy for them and some that are more challenging. And the other thing to think about is sometimes it looks like a person is having a challenge with communication, but maybe it's just that they communicate differently. And who decided the right way to communicate or the ideal way? And so if you look at it as, no, they're not bad at this, they're not weak at this, they just do it differently, it's a whole different perspective. And it's kind of like with animals, where it's like a fish is not good at climbing a tree, but that doesn't mean that it's not doesn't have strengths, and we can find exactly the right environment for a fish to do well.
Wonderful. I like that too. Um, there's also been this IQ test. Do you think it's an accurate measure of people's intelligence over uh, someone else's?
So the IQ test measures some areas of intelligence, but it doesn't measure all of the areas of intelligence. And so it's capturing, maybe verbal skills and nonverbal skills and like quantitative skills, different things like that. And so it's possible to be gifted or have high intelligence in art or music or athletics or emotions or under introspection, understanding yourself or noticing your body signals, spirituality. There's so many different types of intelligences. And so the IQ test does measure something to show people's different strengths and how their brain works, but one IQ is not better than another. They're just different. And so it's important for us to all understand our own brains and what types of intelligence we do have.
Wonderful. And being this leader in the workplace, when you have a neurodivergent person on your team, is it best to find them like a person that always work well with them, or is it better to just mix it up and also place them in a different group? Because back in high school, I always hear the teacher say, you can't always work with someone that you know, someone that you like. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there is a balance to be had, but I also think that it is okay to set someone up for success with what works for them. And there will always be growth opportunities to get to know different people and understand the different perspectives. But at the same time, if somebody works really well alone, and that's how their mental health is good, and that's how they are able to do their passion, and they feel really excited about what they're doing, then why not allow that person to work alone most of the time and figure out, well, in order to collaborate or support them, it can look like this. It doesn't have to be that they come to a meeting and work as a team every week. It could be done in a different way that meets their needs. And so that viewpoint of, well, we can continuously grow in our skills and abilities, but why focus on teaching a fish to climb a tree when the fish is good at swimming?
I think that's a wonderful key takeaway too. Why teach a fish to climb a tree when the fish is good at swimming? And also fostering this inclusive environment for neurodivergent people and not set strict boundaries to the workplace. Thank you so much, Megan, for your awesome lessons. It is an honor to interview you.
Thank you so much for having me.